This week we're talking about shipping, making sure that your products get where they need to go on time. Welcome back to the Inner China Show. This week I sat down with Anthony Chen of Flexport, a freight forwarding company with some really nifty software that helps you monitor your entire shipping process. And we had some really good discussions about how to get started with shipping, things to think about that you might not be thinking about, and making sure that you're promising the right things to your backers or supporters if you did crowdfunding. So without further ado, let's do it. So Anthony, when you're assessing your shipping needs, how do you do that? How do you know your options, know which option is best for you in your situation?
It's definitely hard to figure out what your options are at the very, very beginning when you're first doing this. You kind of have to rely on your factory to give you some good assessment to figure out what you're actually shipping. It's very easy for people to think I'm going to ship 3,000 widgets, but I don't really know how that translates into, how many boxes, how many pallets, how many containers that's actually worth. And so I think, to really assess your shipping needs and knowing your options, you really have to figure out what is it that I'm actually shipping. So in that example, if you're shipping like 3,000 widgets, what you really want to clarify is, okay, cool, I'm shipping 3,000 widgets. How many cartons are they going to be in? Are these cartons going to be palletized for transport? And what are the dimensions and weight of however it's being shipped, right? So, to first assess your shipping needs, you really need to figure out what it is that you're actually going to ship. So I think after you typically figure out, what the size and the weight of the shipping or the shipment is going to be, you can then go from there and figure out what your options are and which one makes the most sense for you. For example, for later shipments, it typically makes sense to, ship by express courier services. For example, if a shipment is less than 100 kilograms and not too volumetric, not too large, you probably have a better bang for your buck if you just shipped it via like a DHL, UPS, or FedEx. If you're shipping, much larger than that, much larger than 100 or 200 kilograms worth of product, then, that's where you might want to enlist the help of a freight forwarder where you're shipping bulk, where you're shipping freight. And then from there, your options become a lot more diverse. You can choose between air freighting or ocean freighting your cargo, and that's kind of dependent on where does your cargo need to go. For the context of Enter China, I'm assuming most factories will be in China somewhere. Maybe a lot of the destinations will be in the U.S. or the U.K. You have to also assess when do you need it at the destination by, right? If you have a rush, air shipment definitely makes more sense. And if you're not in that big of a rush and you're just kind of getting there ahead of time, ocean shipment is probably the best bet. For a lot of first-time importers without heavy demand, it usually makes more sense to ship via ocean freight. And depending on how much product you actually have to ship, you can decide between what's called FCL or LCL. FCL being full container load, LCL being less than container load. Depending on what the market price is at that point in time, there might be slightly different break-even points between, do you pay for a less than container load where you share the container box with other companies, or if you just outright buy the entire container box for your shipment only. Typically, that's around 10 to 15 cubic meters worth of product before it makes sense to just buy the entire container outright for your own shipment.
Okay, so let's step back for a second and assume this is someone's first time just shipping anything out of China, period. They have product at the factory that just it's finished, it's packed, it's ready to go. I mean, where do they send it at that point?
It depends. Usually if you have decided already assessed kind of like your shipment needs, you can kind of decide, is this going to go via like a FedEx type solution or UPS, or am I using like a freight forwarding company that will actually help me move this from A to B? So taking a step further back, if you are like a Kickstarter company where what you want to do is you want to fulfill straight from your factory to your end consumer, you theoretically could just have one of those express courier companies pick it up straight from the factory, and then they'll be responsible for sending it to your final customer. Usually fairly costly and a lot more complicated than it actually sounds. For freight forwarding, you have the option of having the freight forwarder come to the factory to pick up the goods for you, or you could actually have your factory coordinate with the freight forwarder to deliver to like an airport or an ocean port.
So yeah, that actually brings up a good point. What is the case for shipping direct from, let's say, Hong Kong or mainland, or just sending it to a fulfillment center near the like mass of your customer base? Which option is better for different circumstances?
Oh man, there's so many variables here.
Yeah, yeah.
So many variables.
I know it's a broad question. Yeah.
Let me try and simplify that a little bit. A lot of this really depends on the unit economics and what you're trying to do, as well as where your company is in terms of scale. If you can kind of figure out and look at the pricing for your two different options, which one is cheaper for your company that satisfies your customers' demands, go with whatever solution points to that. The reason I say this, and it sounds very vague, is because shipping direct from the factory to your consumer could be advantageous if you're shipping via China Post, USPS, Singapore Post, or something like that, where you're basically shipping via like a postal service. It's going to be very slow. It's ideal for like lightweight products that are somewhat durable, and it could, on the unit economic side, make a lot of sense. On a customer service side, it might not be ideal for everyone because it might take 2 to 3 weeks at the minimum before anyone can receive something, and there may or may not be tracking. Usually what we see is companies that have real traction, they tend to want to plan their supply chain and keep their fulfillment center or third-party logistics company pretty close to home or pretty close to their customers. What that allows them to do is plan a more stable supply chain and try and control costs a little bit. So in the assumption that the unit economics does not work to ship straight from the factory to your consumer, usually signs point to saying you should have a fulfillment center closer to where your customers are.
Well, okay, so that brings a kind of further layer to that, and that's like, do we use a shipping agent or do we not use a shipping agent? A lot of these people coming off of Kickstarter or crowdfunding campaigns, maybe they don't have a ton of units to ship. Maybe it makes more sense for them to ship on their own. At what point does it reach a tipping point that, okay, it's probably a better idea to use a shipping agent to do this for you?
I think in the sense that you can't handle it anymore is when you should reach out to a shipping agent to help you handle it. The reason I say that is because different companies have different types of products, and the amount of love that they need to actually move it will vary quite a bit. My rule of thumb is if you have no more time to continue to improve your product, market your product, sell your product, then it's probably time to let someone else kind of take control of shipping it for you. Your goal should be to build your product and sell it, not to figure out the logistics behind coordinating supply chain. There's a lot of other agents out there in the world that's exactly what they do, and they're more than happy to alleviate some of the burden for you. It also helps, again, if you have a stable supply chain, to enlist the help of a shipping agent as well, primarily because you can actually predict with some level of certainty that you're going to have another shipment down the line where you can kind of have a continuous relationship with that shipping agent, and then they can kind of just be on autopilot for you.
Right, and you have to view your campaign, if you're doing crowdfunding, as you're building a business here. This isn't just something one-off, and so you want to choose a solution that's not just for this one-off solution, but that will set you up for long-term success well into the future as your business grows. So, Anthony, how do you monitor and manage kind of ongoing shipping needs?
I've seen it done a lot of different ways from a lot of different companies. I don't think there's ever like one clear example of what's the right way or best way to do it. I will say that a lot of companies, when they first start out, right after the Kickstarter campaign or their first production run, everyone typically tends to lean towards Excel spreadsheets. A lot of companies will try to use Excel, and it gets them fairly far, actually. I would say even large companies like Apple or Samsung, a lot of them still rely on Excel files to really run their supply chain. So there's no shame in using Excel to kind of monitor and manage your shipping. That being said, a lot of freight forwarders out there will do their best to offer you systems or software or solutions to help you do that. My company, for example, Flexport, we've created a web application that allows companies to monitor their shipments in real time. So they're able to see on a map where exactly their ocean, air, or trucking shipments are in the world. Click into it, get more details about what's actually going on. The milestones, the data behind it, the pricing behind it. Makes it really easy to figure out, where are all your shipments and what do you need to do next. Because let's paint a future world where your business is doing phenomenally well, and you have many, many shipments going on at the same time, or staggered. You don't want to have to remember every single one and what's inside each container. Software is way better at managing larger sets of data, and here at Flexport, that's one of the things that we try to do is make the software work for you.
Yeah, and it makes customer service a heck of a lot easier when you have something like that kind of tool.
Absolutely, and the funny thing is, like, a lot of first-time shippers, they want to use the express couriers like DHL or FedEx because they think, I've used them to receive parcels before, so they must be perfect for any shipping-related needs. And then what they find out is they have a 1-800-GET-LOST dial pad where you call the number and basically you can't reach anyone. And you're freaking out because you just put like half of your investment in this one shipment and you don't know where it is. It's stuck. Someone told you it's stuck, and you're calling DHL or calling FedEx and they can't really help you. That's where freight forwarders really come in, where they typically have a dedicated team to work on your behalf and answer questions for you. We've built a software at Flexport to help clients, companies answer the question for themselves. And then obviously they have a dedicated team behind that, powering the software and powering the service.
Yeah, I would 100% recommend, getting someone who provides that service and then also has a software to tack on top of the service provided. So, excellent option in Flexport there. So thank you, Anthony, for coming on.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.